Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Hueso, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Lara, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Mansour, Mendoza, Miller, Mitchell, Monning, Morrell, Vestande, Nilsson, Norby, Olson, Pan, Perea, V. Manuel Perez, Portantino, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Swanson, Torres, Valadeo, Wagner, Wykowski, Williams, Yamada, Mr. Speaker.
Members, a quorum is present. We ask our guests and visitors in the rear of the chamber and in the gallery to please stand for the prayer. We ask our Assembly Chaplain, Father Constantine Papadimos, to offer the day's prayer.
Good afternoon. Let us pray. Lord, you call us constantly to follow you. We see all types of behavior in the world around us, but nothing stands as a better model for us than you, for you are the truth and the light of the whole world. Lord, when we choose to follow you with our attitude, our behavior, and our words, we may not change the economy or the people around us, but we can stand for something even greater, and the world for us can become new. Amen.
We ask our guests and visitors to remain standing and join us for the flag salute. Please join Assemblymember Eng as he leads us in the pledge. Mr. Eng. You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Thursday, June 23, 2011. The Assembly met at 9 a.m. Honorable Fenton, Model Speaker Pro Tem of the Assembly presiding. Chief R.E. Dawson Wilson at the desk. Reading Clerk Timothy Moreland. The roll was called. Ashajian, Alejo, Allen, Amiano, Atkins, Bell, Berry Hill, Block, Blumenfield, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Butler, Calderon, Campos, Carter, Cedillo, Chesbro, Conway, Cook, Davis, Dickinson, Donnelly, Ing, Fier, Fong, Fuentes, Furutani, Gaines, Gaggiani, Garrett, Gatto, Gordon, Grove, Hagman, Hall, Harkey, Hayashi, Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Hueso, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Lara, Logue, Lowenthal, Mom, Mansour, Mendoza.
Mr. Allen moves. Mr. Hagman seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions. The absences for the day will be deemed and printed in the journal. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker and members, I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 to allow Assembly Member Hall, Logue, and Speaker Perez to have guests and photographers on the floor.
Without objection.
Also request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 118 to allow Assembly Members Donnelly and Jones and Olson to have guests at their desk and a photographer on the floor.
Without objection.
Moreover, request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 again to allow Assembly Member Swanson to speak on adjourn in memory.
Without objection.
For committee-to-committee re-referrals pursuant to Rule 96, I request unanimous consent to refer the following bills to committee. SB 100 from the Business, Professions, and Consumer Protection Committee to the Rules Committee. SB 136 from the Health Committee to the Rules Committee. SB 415 from the Elections and Redistricting Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection.
Also, pursuant to Rule 97, I request unanimous consent to re-refer file item 34, SB 33, from third reading to the Public Safety Committee.
Without objection.
Also, I request unanimous consent to suspend Joint Rule 62A, the file notice requirements, to allow the Assembly Select Committee on Career, Technical Education, and Workforce Development to conduct a joint hearing with the Senate Committee of the same name on Thursday, June 30th at 9 a.m. in room 2040.
Without objection, clerk will note.
And finally, at the request of the author, please remove file item 2, SB 644, from the consent calendar.
Mr. Calderon, that has to be done after second reading.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we will recess the regular session for the purpose of convening the first extraordinary session. Without objection, we will substitute the prayer, pledge, other opening procedures in the regular session for those items in the first extraordinary session. Motions and resolutions. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Is AB 15 at the desk? Has it been received from the Senate?
Oh, okay. Never mind. The bill is still in the Senate. Okay, we're going to introduce some guests today. Mr. Logue, would you like to introduce your guests? We're back in the regular session.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Since February 6, of 1942 the congressional record of California Blue Star moms. The Blue Star moms are mothers who have or have had sons and daughters honorably serving in the military. They are a nonprofit veteran service organization supporting our military children while promoting patriotism. The Soaring Eagle Blue Star Moms of Susanville have a consistent record of service not only to our soldiers, sailors, Marine, and airmen in the military and their families, but also their local community. It is because of this that we honor them today and present them with this resolution. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hall. Okay, Mr. Hall, from Mr. Blumenfield's desk.
Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, members, it's an honor for me to stand before you today to present some dynamic men representing one of the best fraternities on this side of heaven. None other than the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. It's a fraternity and was founded November 17th, 1911. The National Fraternal Organization was founded at a historical black college, Howard University. Howard University, the great Howard University that we all know in Washington, D.C. The founders were three Howard University juniors, Edgar Amos Love, Oscar James Cooper, Frank Coleman, and their faculty advisor, Dr. Ernest Everett Just. Each of the founders graduated and went on to have distinguished careers in their chosen fields. Bishop Love became Bishop of the United Methodist Church. Dr. Oscar James Cooper became a prominent physician. Members, Amos Love became Bishop of the United Methodist Church. Dr. Oscar James Cooper became a prominent physician who practiced in Philadelphia for over 50 years. Professor Frank Coleman became the chairman of the Department of Physics at Howard University for many years, and Dr. Ernest Everett Just became a world-renowned biologist. On November 23rd, 1911, in Thurkill Hall, Love became the first Grand Bossless, the national president. Cooper and Coleman were selected to be the Grand Keeper of Records, the National Secretary, and Grand Keeper of Seals, the National Treasurer, respectively. 11 Howard University undergraduates men were selected to be the charter members. The fraternity has worked to build a strong and effective force of men dedicated to its cardinal principles of manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. In 1927, at the urging of fraternity member Carter Woodson, the fraternity made National Negro Achievement Week an annual observance, and it continues today as the Black History Month. Our fraternity prides itself on the fact that we mentor so many kids throughout this nation. Not only do we mentor kids, but we have a national social action program to meet the needs of African Americans in the area of health, housing, civil rights, and education. Omega Psi Phi has been a patron of the United Negro College Fund since 1955, providing an annual gift well over of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Omega Psi Phi is part of the National Panhellenic Council. I have with us today Brother Willie Washington. By way, most of you probably know him. We have Brother James Walker, Brother Tim Waters, and Brother Ronan Hill present to receive this resolution as we declare today as Omega Day in the Capitol. Also, I'd like to say that this year is a very special year for us, as this is our centennial year. We are honoring and celebrating 100 years in existence. Please welcome our guest. Mr. Speaker. I do know that we have an individual here. He happens to wear red sometimes, and we have another individual of the Black Caucus who happens to wear blue sometimes. But Omegas wear purple.
Okay, we have a couple more guests here today. Mr. Donnelly, would you like to introduce your guest? Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have with me my youngest son, Greg Reginald Donnelly, who came to work with his dad. He's 11 years old, and he wanted to see where Dad spends a lot of his time. So, thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, members. I have my son here this morning, Matthew Jones.
And Ms. Olson.
Thank you, members. I'm proud to introduce my biggest fan and supporter, my father, Dave Olson.
Okay, without objection, we will move to the Assembly Fellows ceremony. During our 11-month tenure with us, the Assembly Fellows have served us in a wide range of staff functions. Nearly half of the offices in the legislature employ former fellows from the Executive, Judicial, Senate, or Assembly Fellowship programs. Other former fellows are now members or officers of the legislature, government officials, Supreme Court justices, university instructors, executives, or community leaders. Colleagues and guests, I am pleased to present the 2010 to 2011 Jesse Martin Unruh Assembly Fellows. The clerk will read.
Andrew Bianchi, placed in the office of Assemblymember Gordon. Amy Carlisle, placed in the office of Assemblymember Fuhr. Diana Coronado, placed in the office of Assemblymember Olson. Stephen Dixon, placed in the office of Assemblymember Nilsen. Lauren Dominguez, placed in the office of Assemblymember Hagman. Mary June Flores, placed in the office of Assemblymember Roger Hernandez. Robert Graham, placed in the office of Assembly Member V. Manuel Perez. David Johnson, placed in the office of Assembly Member Bradford. Athena Lawson, placed in the office of Assembly Member Smythe. Anita Lee, placed in the office of Assembly Member Amiano. Jabron Masil, placed in the office of Assembly Member Hill. Jennifer McDonald, placed in the Republican Caucus Office of Policy. Nicholas Pappas, placed in the office of Assembly Member Fletcher. Jacqueline Cerna, placed in the office of Assembly Member Lara. Daniel Torres, placed in the office of Assembly Member Alejo. Akafa Chiagbe, placed in the office of Assembly Member Skinner. Leslie Villagas, placed in the office of Assembly Member Williams.
Okay, we'd also like to welcome the current and past directors of the Assembly Fellowship Program, Pam Chu and Consuelo Hernandez, and Mr. Tim Hodson, Executive Director of the Center for California Studies. in the back of the chambers. And let's give a round of applause for the 2010 to 2011 Jesse Marvin Unruh Assembly Fellows, their mentors, and the staff of the program and the center. Mr. Calderon.
Are we in extraordinary session?
Not yet. Wait a minute. Okay, we will recess the regular session for the purpose of convening the first extraordinary session. Without objection, we will substitute the prayer pledge, other opening procedures in the regular session for those items in the first extraordinary session. Motions and resolutions. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 77 to allow Mr. Hill to take up AB 15 for concurrence and Senate amendments without reference to file today.
Without objection. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 15 by Assemblymember Hill, an act relating to taxation, to declare an emergency thereof, to take effect immediately.
Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill has received unanimous bipartisan support throughout its process. The Senate amendments clarify the types of financial transactions that comply with the current exclusion from property tax reassessment on solar installations. I ask for your aye vote and immediate transmittal to the Governor.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 67, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, the first extraordinary session is recessed under call of the Speaker. We are now back in regular session. So we've got some more guests in the chambers with us today. Mr. Furutani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members. We have a lot of very distinguished guests here this afternoon. I would like to introduce another group from the Asian Pacific Islander Legislative Caucus, our Capital Academy. This is a leadership program that really gives people a sense of what really goes on here in the Capitol, and potentially these individuals may sit in these desks one day. Assemblymember Paul Fong was a part of the first class of the Capital Academy, so they have provided some good direction relative to future participation in the legislature. If I could introduce Dr. Michael Chang, Vice President of Santa Clara County Board of Education, Mr. G. Henry Charon, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of La Palma, Joseph Cho, Dr. Joseph Cho, Council Member of the City of Cerritos, Lillian Kawasaki, Board Member, Water Replenishment District of Southern California, Mr. David Lim, Council Member of the City of San Mateo, Mr. Henry Lowe, Board Member, Garvey School District, Mr. Steve No, Board of Trustees, San Francisco Community College District, and Mary Sue, Council Member, City of Walnut. These are our participants in the Capital Academy for the Asian Pacific Islander Legislative Caucus. Welcome.
Okay, we have business on the daily file. Second reading. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 774, 644, 913 with amendments, 48509, 614, 718 with amendments, 445, 744 with amendments, and Senate Bill 734 with amendments.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, so Madam Speaker, at the request of the author, please remove file item 2, SB 644, from the consent calendar. And also, at the request of Mr. Calderon, please remove file item 39, SB 582, by Emerson.
Without objection, clerk.
Okay, members, we're going to start with the concurrence file today. File number 11, ACR 42. Clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent resolution 42 by Assemblymember Ma and others relative to Eat Local Buy California Grown Day.
Ms. Ma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The amendments taken in the Senate are technical amendments. ACR 42 declares Sunday as Eat Local Buy California Grown Day. California leads the nation as the country's largest agricultural producer and exporter. In fact, California accounts for 49% of the country's total agriculture production, and more than 90% of California farms are family farms or partnerships. If all Californians dedicated one day a week to eating only California produced or produced and processed, it could represent a consumption increase of up to 4.2 billion pounds and $26.3 billion in sales. Respectfully ask for your aye vote on these amendments.
Mr. Norby.
Nothing we say or do here today will have any influence on the dietary habits of even one Californian, especially this month of all months with all the things we have to do.
Ms. Ma, you may close if you wish.
It's always good to eat healthy, and please remember California-grown products to support our agricultural industry. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 65, noes 1. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 12, AB 798. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 798 by Assemblymember Chesbro, an act relating to the joint exercise of powers.
Mr. Chesbro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. AB 798 is a district bill focused on the intergovernmental relations between the Smith River Rancheria Tribal Council and all the other local governments in Del Norte County, which is the far northwest corner for those of you who haven't been there. And this is a modest bill that includes a single tribe and 2 small local governments. It's supported virtually unanimously by local organizations and governments throughout the county. There is no known opposition. This bill has received widespread bipartisan support. It's back for concurrence on amendments that were taken in the Senate. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 60, noes 7. Senate amendments are concurred in.
File item 13, AB 1085. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1085 by Assemblymember Davis, an act relating to school attendance.
Mr. Davis.
Members and Speaker, today I ask for your aye vote on the concurrence of Assembly Bill 1085, which would amend the existing 30-day calendar timeline to 40 school days for the state's largest counties to review parental interdistrict transfer requests denied by school districts. As already passed by the Assembly with strong bipartisan support, the only amendment made in the Senate that the appeal extension include a reasonable sunset date of July 1st, 2015 to review how the unprecedented increase in interdistrict appeals of the largest counties are trending. The bill has no opposition. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the vote, close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 56, noes 12. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, we are going to pass and retain the Assembly third reading. Consent calendar. We are at the second day consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the second day consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, the clerk will read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 12 by Assemblymember Solorio relative to the Strengthening Medicare and Repaying Taxpayer Act of 2011.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. On the consent calendar. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 74, no 0.
Senate Bill 424.
Ayes 74, no 0.
Senate Bill 926.
Ayes 74, no 0.
Senate Bill 221.
Ayes 74, no 0.
Senate Bill 278.
Ayes 74, no 0.
And Senate Joint Resolution 6.
Ayes 74, no 0. Okay, we've got one adjourn in memory today. Mr. Swanson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, it's with a heavy heart that I rise today to ask this chamber to adjourn in the memory of a longtime friend of mine and a local business leader in our community. Tom Williams passed away on June 21st in Scottsdale, Arizona, vacationing with his wife. We honored Mr. Williams here in the state capitol on June 6th, where he had a chance to meet many of you and was quite impressed with the recognition of his work as a small business leader in our community of Oakland, where he formed a company and with 2 employees grew that company to over 100 employees, had offices located in Oakland, California, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. He was a very generous man. He very committed to his family, totally and completely in love with his new grandson, and someone who the community had a tremendous amount of respect for. His untimely death leaves us all in a great sense of mourning, but celebration of a great life. He leaves his wife, Gloria, his daughter, Nicole, his son-in-law, Jason, and his grandson, Nicholas. So in preparing remarks for the day, I said, what do you say about someone who you've known for more than 30 years and who never once in the whole period ever said no? I think you have to call that person a friend, and so I ask you to adjourn in the memory of my good friend Tom Williams today.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Please bring the name to the desk to be printed in the journal. The Assembly session is as follows. Tuesday, June 28th, check-in session and floor session upon call of the Speaker. Wednesday, June 29th, check-in session and floor session upon call of the Speaker. Thursday, June 30th, check-in session and floor session upon call of the Speaker. The State of the Judiciary address has been postponed on Thursday. Friday, July 1st, floor session at 9 a.m. Saturday, July 2nd, floor session upon call of the Speaker. Sunday, July 3rd, floor session upon call of the Speaker. Monday, July 4th, holiday, Independence Day. Tuesday, July 5th, floor session at 12 noon. There will be a Democratic caucus in the members' lounge following session today. Mr. Cedillo, for what purpose do you rise?
Privileges of the floor, Madam Speaker.
Do you have an announcement? We don't have privileges of the floor here. That's in the Senate.
Okay, well, then that's appropriate if I have an announcement then.
Okay.
I am very privileged to introduce 40 what we call young senators who are visiting here from Los Angeles. They drove up yesterday afternoon. They'll be here for the week. They're going to have their own legislative session. They're going to pass their own budget, and they're going to pass their own DREAM Act. I hope all of you will welcome the young senators from the 45th Assembly District here to the Capitol.
Okay, and Mr. Manuel Perez has guests as well.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'd like to recognize several youth visiting the Capitol today from the 8th Assembly District. These youth are participating in the Building Healthy Communities statewide Youth Convention being held here in Sacramento, sponsored by the California Endowment Foundation. I ask these youth to stand so my colleagues can greet you, as they're working hard to create healthier communities in the 8th Assembly District. These young people have been helping to develop strategies and insights into how to establish partnerships within their community to create an environment where all children are healthy, safe, and ready to learn. Thank you for this opportunity, and youth from the 8th Assembly District, thank you for being here as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Speaker moves. Ms. Conway seconds. That this House stands adjourned until Friday, July 1st at 9 a.m. Democratic caucus in the members' lounge. Members, Democratic caucus in the members' lounge right now. Quorum calls lifted.